I'm getting rid of the foster child my family has had for 7 years because of his special needs. I don't care if it makes me a bad person. I'm a 30-year-old man. My mom was a foster carer for the last 11 years before she passed away, and she made me promise that I would take over when she died. She had heart failure, but had lived from 7 years after diagnosis. She had 2 foster children, John and Paul. John came to live with us when I was 19 years old, and he was 8 and had severe behavioral issues linked to his trauma. My world was turned upside down, but I very quickly grew to love him. Underneath the trauma and the difficulties, he was an amazing boy who I loved with my entire heart. He's now 19 himself and still lives with me. He just finished high school, and I have no plans to move him out until he is ready. John and I have a great relationship. On the other hand, Paul is 16 years old. He came to live with us when he was 9. Paul has severe special needs, and no matter how much I've tried, I just cannot connect with him in the same way I did for John. Whereas John's behaviors needs never bothered me, with Paul they do. I find him frustrating, and I have to remind myself that he is only on the same level as a 3/4-year-old mentally, and it's not fair that I get frustrated at him. When Mom was still alive, she took the main role of looking after Paul, and I supported her, which was okay. But I knew that when she was gone, I would struggle with him by myself. I didn't sign up to do this. I didn't sign up to look after him for the rest of my life. I just didn't. Mom died 6 months ago, and I said to myself I would try. I kept Paul for all this time, but I just can't cope with him. I can't. I told my social worker that he needs to be moved by the end of the month because I just can't manage. I want to continue fostering, and I love being a foster carer, but I just cannot meet his needs, and it was different when Mom was still alive. I feel so guilty because I made my mom a promise that I would care for him until he was at least 18. But I'm building resentment to him, and it isn't fair on him. He deserves to have someone who loves and cares for him in the ways that I just can't. So yeah, call me selfish, call me scum, whatever. I deserve it. Relevant comments. Commenter, have you looked into state programs that could help with having a nurse or special needs caregiver to help with the burden? Uprooting P could hurt him even more, and he might be looking at you for support. Look into some programs to help and see what they say. If you need to move P, make sure you can discuss it with him. With him having a mind of a 3/4-year-old, that does some real damage to him if you aren't careful. My condolences and good luck. Edit. The other commenters are providing good advice and words of encouragement. OP, I've tried everything, any and all resources and support there is. When he's at school, it's not too bad. He has a transport to and from school every day and has a career who comes and takes him out for 5 hours each week. Plus, I have 2 days each month where he is sent to a different foster carer so I can have some peace time. But even with the support, I can't manage it. I feel guilty for giving up, but I honestly tried my best. This doesn't mean I'm cutting him off completely. I'll still visit him sometimes. But I can't meet his needs, and I really tried. OP responds to multiple questions about Suck It In and continuing with fostering Paul, and if there are any programs or residential homes that work with people like Paul. OP, no, don't worry, they already have a place for him in a residential home. I don't know if the system is different in different countries, but giving notice here on a placement isn't seen as the end of you fostering, and I didn't have to justify it beyond, I just can't cope, luckily, because I would have broken down if I had had to find justifications for it. It's funny, my mom used to say that the agency would always have had a way harder time playing J than P. J has very mild learning disabilities, but mainly linked to trauma, and had very bad behavior, even now, linked to his trauma, even though it's way better than when he was 8 LOL. He's given me black eyes and bloody noses, smashed my laptops and TVs. And there was never a point, throughout all of that, where I ever thought I wouldn't give up on him. I would foster another child like him in a heartbeat and struggled to see why anyone wouldn't. To me, he was just a kid in a tough spot, and our love helped him. My mom explained to me that children like him are actually harder to place because people are less forgiving of behaviors without a cause they can physically see, like an obvious learning disability. I really tried to extend that to P. Genuinely, I did. I just couldn't. It just didn't click. I can't do the care he needs, sadly. And it's gutting for me because I really tried. And even though, I don't feel that intense love for him that I do for J. I would never want P to be put in harm or not cared for. That isn't how the foster care system works. Me being unable to cope with Paul, who has extreme needs, means I should never be able to care for potential tens of children that I can support throughout my lifetime. Because I cannot support one child is severe sin means that any potential foster children that I could support should what? Just continue living in residential/group homes? Have a think about how that logic works for you. Me admitting I can't cope with one child means that tens of future children could go without care and love in your world. Does that make sense to you? He is already on the highest package of support, which is immense, and I am entirely grateful to my agency. But even with it, I'm not in a position to support him how he needs it, unfortunately. He already has a place in a residential home, and I will still visit him. I don't want to just move him there and pretend he never was part of my life. I'm not that heartless, at least, lol. Update 1. It has now been a few days since Paul moved out, so I thought I would give a little update. Firstly, I want to thank everyone who took the time to read my previous post, and for those who offered support and understanding. It meant a lot, honestly. Paul has been placed with a new family who specialize in caring for children with severe special needs. I believe this is the best environment for him, and he seems to be settling in well. I am keeping in touch with his new carers, and they've assured me that he's receiving the care and attention he needs. At first, the house felt different, quieter, but also emptier. There's a lingering sense of guilt, but I'm also more at peace knowing he's in a place better suited to his needs. John and I have had more time to spend together, which has been nice. We've talked a lot about everything that's happened, and I'm grateful for his understanding and support. I've also started seeing a therapist to help work through the guilt I have been feeling and to help me grieve. Yesterday, my agency reached out saying they have 2 little boys needing housing for a short-term placement. They said initially 6 weeks, but it could be extended. They are coming tomorrow, and I am excited. They're 9 and 11 and are coming directly from their birth families. This will be my first proper placement, so I would be lying if I said I didn't feel a little anxious. Thank you again to everyone who reached out. Relevant comments. Commenter. It sounds like everything is working out well for both you, and Jay as well, P, and the kids you're able to help now with these 2 and in the future. Good job taking care of yourself in this difficult time with therapy too. Commenter. So glad to hear you made the right decision. Sounds like you are very awesome, and I hope your new placement will be a good fit. Commenter. Good luck to you and all the boys. You did the right thing for you all. You tried, and it just didn't work out, and anyone telling you different have never even come close to taking care of someone with severe disabilities. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since the new boys, Kyle 9 and Ethan 11, arrived, and let me just say life has gotten crazy. And I mean, insanely crazy. Kyle is this energetic little fireball who seems to have an endless supply of questions about everything from how the dishwasher works to why the sky is blue. And Ethan, well, he's a bit more reserved, but the kid's got a sharp mind. You can see him thinking things over, and when he does speak, it's usually something that makes you stop and go, huh, never thought of it that way. But let's not sugarcoat things. These kids come with their own set of challenges. I knew fostering wasn't going to be a walk in the park, but man, I wasn't fully prepared for the level of chaos that was about to hit my life. Kyle had a meltdown on day 3 because I ran out of his favorite cereal. Like, full-on tears, snot, the works. I didn't even know a kid could be that attached to Honey Nut Cheerios. And Ethan? He's been sneaking around the house at night. I caught him twice in the kitchen, just standing there, staring into the fridge like it's a portal to another dimension. John has been a total champ through all of this. He's really stepped up, helping out with the boys in ways I never expected. He's got this way of calming Kyle down that I can't quite replicate. He just talks to him in this soothing voice, and before you know it, Kyle's giggling instead of crying. It's like magic, but I can tell that John's also struggling a bit. This is a big change, and it's brought up some memories for him. We had a talk the other night, and he admitted that seeing the boys reminds him of when he first came to live with us and how lost he felt. I've been trying to balance everything: my job, the boys, taking care of the house, and it's been a lot. The other day, I accidentally put my phone in the fridge. Yeah, that's where my brain is at right now, but I'm trying to take it one day at a time. My therapist has been helpful, especially when it comes to dealing with the guilt I still feel about Paul. It's like this ghost that lingers around, whispering in my ear at the worst times. But I know I made the right decision for both of us. At least, that's what I keep telling myself. Speaking of Paul, I visited him at his new home last weekend. It was hard. He seemed happy enough, but when he saw me, he got really clingy, wouldn't let go of my hand. It tore me up inside, but I had to keep it together for him. The staff said he's adjusting well, and they're taking good care of him, but I still left feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. I don't know how often I'll be able to visit. It's too painful, and I don't want to confuse him or disrupt his progress. But then, life threw me another curveball. My agency called me yesterday with an urgent placement request for a 14-year-old girl. Her name is Tara, and she's coming from a pretty rough situation. They said it would only be temporary, maybe a couple of months, but I don't know. Something about this feels different. I haven't even met her yet, but there's this gnawing feeling in my gut that this is going to be a big one. John's a bit wary. He remembers how tough it was for us when he first moved in, and he's worried about how Tara's arrival will shake things up. I'm trying to stay positive, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. My house is starting to feel like a revolving door of chaos, and I'm not sure how much more I can handle. But I made a promise, and I'm not going to back down now. So, yeah, that's where things stand. My life is a swirling vortex of cereal-induced tantrums, late-night fridge raids, and impending teenage drama. But I guess that's just the way it goes in the world of fostering, right? You take the good with the bad, and you hope like hell you're making a difference. Anyway, I'm bracing myself for whatever comes next. Whether I'm ready or not, Tara will be here tomorrow, and I've got a feeling things are about to get a whole lot more complicated. Update 3. So, Tara arrived, and wow, I don't even know where to start. The first thing you need to know about Tara is that she's tough. Like, really tough. She showed up at my doorstep with a backpack slung over one shoulder, wearing this scowl that could curdle milk. She didn't say much at first, just shrugged when I tried to make small talk and practically bolted to the room we set up for her. I could tell right away that this was going to be a different kind of challenge. The first couple of days were rough. Tara was distant, barely talking to anyone. She didn't want to eat with us, preferring to take her meals in her room. I gave her space, thinking maybe she just needed time to adjust. But then things started to get strange. I noticed little things going missing around the house, nothing big, just small items like pins, a few bucks from my wallet, even a couple of snacks from the pantry. At first, I thought it was one of the boys, but they've never been sneaky like that. Then I realized it was Tara. I confronted her about it one evening, expecting her to deny it or maybe get defensive. But she just looked at me with this blank expression and said, "So what?" I was stunned. I didn't know how to respond. I mean, this was supposed to be a safe place for her, and here she was, acting like she didn't care about anything. I tried to talk to her, tried to explain that she didn't need to steal, that we provide whatever she needed. But she just shrugged again and walked off. That night, John and I stayed up late talking about what to do. He's been amazing through all of this. Seriously, I don't know what I'd do without him. He suggested that maybe Tara's testing us, trying to see if we'll kick her out like so many others probably have. It made sense, but it didn't make it any easier to deal with. Then, a few nights ago, things escalated. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of glass breaking. My heart practically jumped out of my chest as I rushed downstairs, thinking one of the boys had hurt themselves. But when I got to the living room, I found Tara standing there, barefoot, in the middle of the shattered remains of my favorite lamp. She just stared at me with those hard eyes, like she was daring me to react. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to yell, to scream, to demand why she'd done it. But instead, I just took a deep breath and asked if she was okay. She didn't answer, just kept staring at me. Finally, she muttered something under her breath, something I could barely make out. "I don't belong here." My heart broke a little in that moment. I could see it, the fear and the anger all mixed together in those words. Tara didn't think she deserved a place where people cared about her, where she could be safe. It was like she was trying to prove she was too broken to be fixed. I spent the next hour cleaning up the glass while Tara just sat on the couch, watching me. I didn't say anything more, and neither did she. But when I was done, I sat down next to her and told her that, no matter what she did, she wasn't going to scare me away. That this was her home now, whether she believed it or not. She didn't respond, just got up and went back to her room. But something shifted after that. She's still distant, still tough as nails, but there's a softness that's starting to peek through. She started eating dinner with us, though she still doesn't talk much. And I caught her helping Kyle with his homework the other day, even though she pretended not to care when I saw her. John and I are keeping a close eye on her, trying to give her space while also making sure she knows we're here if she needs us. It's a delicate balance, and honestly, I don't know if I'm getting it right, but I'm trying, and that's all I can do. And then, just when I thought things might be calming down, the agency called again. There's another child who needs a placement in emergency situation. A 12-year-old boy named Ricky who's been in and out of foster homes for years. They said he's been through a lot and warned me that he's got some serious behavioral issues. Part of me wanted to say no. My plate is already so full, and I'm not sure I can handle another child, especially one with as many issues as they're hinting at. But then I remembered why I'm doing this. I can't turn my back on a kid who needs help, even if it means things are going to get even more chaotic around here. So, Ricky's coming tomorrow. I don't know what to expect, and I'm honestly a little terrified. But I'm also ready. Ready to see what this next chapter holds. Ready to try to make a difference, even if it's just for a little while. I'll update you all again when I can. But for now, just know that things are about to get even crazier around here. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Update 4. Where do I even begin? Ricky arrived yesterday, and let's just say, it was an entrance I'll never forget. He stepped out of the social worker's car with a scowl that rivaled Tara's when she first got here. This kid looked like he was ready to take on the world or burn it down. I was prepared for a difficult transition, but I wasn't prepared for the whirlwind that hit my house the moment Ricky walked through the door. The first thing he did? He looked around the living room, made some snide comment about the boring decor, and then walked straight past me to the fridge. Without asking, he grabbed a soda, popped it open, and plopped himself down on the couch like he owned the place. I was stunned, but I forced a smile and introduced myself. Ricky barely acknowledged me, his eyes fixed on the TV. It was like watching a grenade slowly roll into the middle of your living room, knowing it's going to go off but having no idea when. The tension was palpable, and I could see John watching from the hallway, concern etched on his face. As the day went on, Ricky didn't make things any easier. He picked fights with Kyle and Ethan over the dumbest things, what TV show to watch, who got the last slice of pizza, and by the end of the night, I was already exhausted. Tara, surprisingly, seemed to keep her distance from the whole situation. She watched Ricky like a hawk, but didn't get involved. There was this unspoken understanding between them, like they both knew what it was like to be the new kid with a chip on their shoulder. But then, just when I thought we were in for a night of constant arguments, Ricky did something that completely threw me off. It was around 11 p.m., and I was about to head to bed when I heard soft crying coming from the living room. I walked in to find Ricky, curled up on the couch, holding the stuffed bear that Kyle had left out earlier. He didn't notice me at first, and when he did, he quickly wiped his tears and tried to act tough again. "I'm not crying," he snapped, even though his red eyes betrayed him. I didn't push. I just sat down on the opposite end of the couch and told him he didn't have to be tough all the time. He didn't say anything, just kept staring at the TV, but I could see the wheels turning in his head. After a few minutes, he mumbled something about missing his mom, then got up and went to his room without another word. That moment hit me hard. Here was this kid, who on the surface seemed so angry and aggressive, but underneath it all, he was just a scared, hurt child. It reminded me of John when he first came to live with us, all those years ago. It reminded me that, no matter how tough these kids act, they're still just kids who've been dealt a terrible hand. The next day, things were still tense, but there was a noticeable difference in Ricky. He wasn't as confrontational, though he still had a bit of an attitude. He didn't pick as many fights, and he even joined us for dinner without a fuss. I could see him watching the rest of us, like he was trying to figure out where he fit in. And then, the bomb dropped. This morning, I got a call from the agency. Ricky's mom, who had been in and out of rehab for years, was found unconscious and is now in a coma. The chances of her recovering are slim, and the agency needed me to break the news to Ricky. They said he had the right to know, but I could tell they didn't want to be the ones to do it. I spent the entire day dreading that conversation. How do you tell a 12-year-old kid that his mom, the person he's probably been holding out hope for, might never wake up? I thought about putting it off, but I knew that would only make things worse. So, after dinner, I asked Ricky to sit with me in the living room. He immediately got defensive, crossing his arms and refusing to look at me. But I pushed forward, as gently as I could, telling him the truth. His reaction was explosive. He started yelling, accusing me of lying, saying that his mom was getting better and that this couldn't be happening. Then, in a flash, he grabbed a glass off the table and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the wall, and for a second, I thought he might actually try to hit me. But instead, he just broke down. He sank to the floor, sobbing, all that anger and pain pouring out in a way that was hard to watch. I didn't know what to do, so I just sat there with him, letting him cry it out. When he finally looked up at me, his eyes were full of a mix of rage and desperation that I don't think I'll ever forget. "She was supposed to come get me," he whispered, his voice cracking. I didn't have an answer for that. What could I say? So, I just sat with him, not trying to fix it, just being there. Eventually, Ricky got up and went to his room without another word, leaving me alone with my thoughts. So, yeah, that's where we're at. The house is still a tornado of emotions, and I'm barely holding it together. But I know that Ricky is just another kid who needs someone to fight for him, even if he doesn't know how to ask for it. I don't know how this is all going to turn out. I don't know if I'm strong enough to handle everything that's being thrown at me. But I do know one thing: I'm not giving up. Not on Ricky, not on any of these kids.